Coming up on this week's episode of TechSNAP, why hyping up cybersecurity threats is counterproductive and why not knowing is never good enough, plus the malware that targets hotel visitors, a FreeNAS themed bunch of questions and our answers, and much, much more on this week's episode of TechSNAP. Hi everyone, and welcome to TechSNAP. This is episode 189, which we streamed live on November 20th, 2014. This is Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly systems network and administration podcast. This episode is brought to you by our three fine sponsors, Ting, DigitalOcean, and IX Systems. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. Our live stream, why that's powered by the incredible Scale Engine over at scaleengine.com. You've got to go check that out. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, the admin, the tech, and the teacher, Mr. Alan Jude. Hey there, Alan.
Hey, Chris, everybody.
Hey, Alan. Hey, Alan. Nice jacket, man. I'm noticing there. Am I right? I can't see the logo quite, but
yeah, it's my silly penguin sweater.
Oh yeah, I know you really care when you buy a Linux when you buy the Linux gear. Thanks, Alan. Well,
it's winter time,
and I know, right? Sweater. And you know what?
It's a very nice sweater.
I should mention for a little bit of time, we do have Jupiter Gift, Jupiter.gift. We have the jacket up there right now, which has sold. It's a threshold, so the jacket is up for sale again. We have a hoodie, a Tech Talk Today hoodie. Alan, though, I don't know if you're a big polo wearer, but we have the coolest polo. I've been testing the materials, so I've gotten a couple of these different shirts, and they are awesome. They're really good, thick polo material, and the Jupiter Broadcasting logo is embroidered, and we're getting proof of concepts embroideries to make sure it's like the most perfect embroidery we can get. So we have a JB Polo at teespring.com/JBPolo. Or you can go to jupiter.gift to see them all listed.
Which color do you like?
You know, Ange says she thinks I'm really going to like the, I guess they call it like a charcoal heather or something, heather or something like that.
Yeah, they have a charcoal one, which is nice. The ink is kind of blue, but very, I like that too.
The only proof of concepts I've seen have been black, but I think the charcoal one,
nice too,
I think that charcoal one's perfect though for me.
But yeah, the nice thing about the charcoal is that any little lint and stuff doesn't show as bad as on a black one.
Yep. So JB Polo, teespring.com/JB Polo. We've sold 28 towards 100. So if you're watching this now, there's 12 days, 8 hours left to get in on that business, and you get it in time for the holidays. So Alan, we got a lot to cover today, and one that always seems like maybe it's the overall story of like what went wrong sometimes is like not enough due diligence, really. So probably a good place to start this week, isn't it?
Yeah. So this is a blog post over at the Pinnacle Group, which I don't know, I just ran across it randomly, but it's entitled. It's talking about due diligence, and so that's when when the officer of corporation has to look into things before they make a decision and make sure they've considered everything, right?
Yeah.
He says that oftentimes when he's traveling around and going to companies and doing assessments on their networks and stuff, he hears them say, if you find vulnerabilities or risks in our environment, then we'll have to fix it. As if like, please don't point out anything because then we'd have to fix it.
It's not our problem if we don't know about it.
Exactly. Saying,
I hate that so much.
Why do the due diligence? Because if we don't know, then we're safe.
How does that even logically work?
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah. So it's like, the problem seems to be, especially in larger, more bureaucratic organizations, like large companies and so on, if you know about a problem and do not fix it, then it's your fault for not having fixed it. But if you don't know that there was a problem in the first place, then it can't possibly be your fault.
It's like it's a method of blame deferral in a way.
Yeah. Or risk mitigation.
Yeah. It's like I would have taken care if I had known about
this problem, but I don't want to point it out because then I'll have to fix it.
Well, and you know what happened where I used to work is because they were audited on a frequent basis. Essentially, it was you built to pass the audit. So you built the environment, the security standards you followed, the best practices you implemented, even the versions of software you upgraded to. You only upgraded when you needed to do it to pass compliance testing, and you only did the types of security you needed to do to pass compliance testing. And if something kind of went outside that compliance testing, it wasn't completely dismissed, but it was definitely the lowest priority possible because, you know what, that's not on the test. And the test is what we have to pass, not actual, like, real-world security where we could get hacked. No, we have to pass the test.
Up to that point, it sounds a lot like, standardized testing in high school and just how people study for classes in college. You know, every time I was teaching something, it was like, is this going to be on the test? I'm like, if I say no, you're just going to stop listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because it's not on the test doesn't mean you don't need to know this to do your job. But you do want a career after this, not just a piece of paper, right? But yeah, but at some point, in order to actually start having security at big companies and stuff, people need to take responsibility and actually look at some of this stuff.
And initiative too.
Right. And so, the chief technical officer or chief information officer, chief security officer, whatever you want to call the person who's ultimately responsible for this type of thing, if they didn't know that might be a problem, or that, that needed to be investigated, or that the third-party vendor access to our secure network was a gaping back door that anybody could come through.
Yeah.
Or that, then it's not really that CTO's fault. It's the fault of the person who hired that CTO for hiring an incompetent person that didn't know that would be a problem.
Well, so when we look at things like the Home Depot breach and the Target breach, what really stands out to me is that seems like long-term negligence. That seems like multiple people should probably be getting fired. Like the person that implemented the system, the person who was managing that person, and the CTO. And that whole chain, to me, seemed like they should be getting fired after a breach like that, because it seems like negligence along the entire chain. But instead it was, oh, well, we didn't know the vendor's system could be compromised. We didn't know that the vendor wasn't properly securing their connection to us.
Using the same password for everything.
And
yet things like that. And I think the CTO or CEO of Target stepped down, but they had only been in the job 6 months. And obviously this had all happened. Most of what had happened before they even took over. And yeah, you see all kinds of things like this. It's like, well, yeah. But in the end, I'm not saying that the breach, that every breach is the fault of the security officer, right? There's always going to be an adversary that's smarter than you are.
Yeah, there's zero-day vulnerabilities. There's all kinds of problems
lots of ways
that you have
people
no
are going to
control.
break into your network.
Yeah.
The difference between a good security officer and not is having a plan in place, right? Actually having some procedures, having policies,
being prepared for it not to work out, being prepared for there to be failure.
So that, there's a plan for what to do in the event of a breach, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a question of when it's going to happen, not if.
Right, exactly.
So, it comes down to the old adage, ignorance of the law is no excuse, kind of holds true for information security.
Good point.
Right? Oh, I didn't know that having somebody have backdoor access into our secure network was a bad idea. Why not?
Right. You didn't think of that?
How did you not know that?
Right. Yeah.
How did you get this job without knowing that?
Yeah.
I think the problem is that the CTO or CIO or whatever tend to be more the corporate types and not the actual IT types. Just because you're a good manager doesn't mean you would be a good CTO necessarily. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or if you are just that type of person, then you need to have a person reporting to you that actually can do this stuff, and you have to sign off on them actually doing it.
Right. You have to be able to recognize your limitations and make sure the right people are working
with you. Complete postulation or whatever, but that when the vendor needed access to the refrigeration system at Target, the CTO or whatever said, okay, well, this project is going to cost this much money to build a completely separated, isolated network just for the refrigeration system, and we can give the vendor access to that. Or we can install this little router over here.
Just plug it into your switch here. Yeah.
And they'll be able to piggyback in.
We're hooked up. We're good.
Yeah.
We don't have to really spend anything.
And this won't cost, $50,000 worth of new gear or whatever. And, hours of people setting it up. And somebody decided that the cheaper way was the best way, or that it was an acceptable risk.
Yeah.
Or they had mitigated the risk with a firewall.
Disco points out in the chat room, and I think it's really true, that this is really highlighting the long-term struggle in corporations between technologists and management, and security is sort of the victim.
Yes, but it's not always management's fault. A lot of times the technologist is like, well, I don't want to spend a month setting up a separate secure network just for them to turn the heat up and down or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, pushback does come from both sides for sure, for different reasons. And you know what? To be fair, one of the best managers I ever had, she had very little technical experience herself, but she was very good at assessing a situation and making sure she delegated it to the right people, following up, and then sort of bringing everything together and helping everybody stay on track. And those were her core strengths, and she was one of my favorite CTOs that I ever worked for.
Yes, but at some point they have to have certain understanding to be able to do the job.
Yeah, she had some, yeah, for sure.
Right, but yeah,
but she definitely was
people like that with a bunch of jargon and buzzwords.
Oh yeah.
Like, that sounds good.
I probably could have. Yeah, I probably could have taken advantage of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then in that case, they can cause just many problems, which we'll actually get to in a different story a little bit later.
Little tease.
Yeah. But a common perspective is that cybersecurity is primarily the responsibility of the IT department, which isn't always true. Like we had that Twitter comic the other week is like they do all this stuff to secure the network, and then some management type just sends the database via email, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was great.
If a data breach incident occurred, the senior IT executive was the one to take the fall, and usually only if there was incompetence involved versus simply bad luck. Now, oftentimes I wouldn't say that a lot of these breaches are bad luck necessarily. For example, the Target one, they were getting warnings from their notification system, their monitoring system, saying, hey, there's suspicious activity, or they were just ignoring them.
Yeah. Oh, that thing's always going off. Just ignore that.
And rather than fixing that and doing it so it gave the right level of notifications, they just ignored it instead. Right?
Yeah, just set up an email filter. Clear that right out.
Yeah. We'll check on it like once a month and see if there's anything useful in the log. It says there's always going to be the adversary out there that's smarter than you, so you have to plan in advance, right? If you have defense in depth, then they have to break through multiple layers before they can get at the goodies or whatever, right? Early detection and isolation. If you can find out, if you find that they've broken in and accessed the secretary's machine by sending her a spear phishing email, if you can isolate it so they didn't manage to get off her machine before they escalate and island hop, then you can nuke it before they get any further, right? Or mitigation and remediation, right? So you have ASLR in the that Microsoft EMET, the Advanced Mitigation Environment stuff.
Yeah.
And that meant that they couldn't get privilege escalation and actually get administrator access to her Windows machine, only her level access, and they couldn't go farther. Or and the remediation was, well, we reformatted her machine, and now, we're sure that the virus isn't there anymore. And disaster recovery planning, right? We have backups of our database so that if somebody gets in and destroys it, we don't lose anything, or so that we can compare the live system to the backup.
Yeah, see what's
make sure
changed.
There's no difference. Yeah. Or we can just nuke the server and restore it from a known good backup from the day before or something.
Well, I'm kind of agreeing with Disco in the chat room. He says, you know what? Bad luck equals poor assessment of the risks in the environment. And that's generally true, I'd say. I mean, bad luck could also be...
good luck to stay secure is not a good way to go.
I've been pretty lucky. Yeah, I don't patch. I've been pretty lucky. Doesn't work like that.
Also, do you have a plan for disclosure or compliance?
Oh, yeah.
When you do get hacked, most companies don't even know that, we have to tell the privacy commissioner, like in Canada, you actually have to disclose the vulnerability to the government as well, so the government can keep track of all these disclosures and stuff and maybe decide to investigate and that you actually violated the Personal Information and Private Documents Act or whatever, So how are you going to contact your customers? Do you already have a relationship with Experian to buy that free credit reporting? And, if you don't have a plan in place for what to do when you get hacked, then you're not doing your job as a security officer or the information officer or whoever's job that's supposed to be. And so you might actually want to look at having a plan. And then,
what are you going to do?
That way, when you do get compromised, you'll have, to-do lists and action plans.
I would also say just the exercise of doing that makes you think about things that you'll be grateful that you ran through in your mind, and that might even end up in you doing a few extra things to either take precautions or get contacts lined up or get a group scenario set up where people are on call. There's a lot of beneficial things that can come out of creating a plan around that.
Right. So even if you are the next one that gets the big hack, if you have if after the first day or whatever, you could have done all of these things to mitigate it, to stop it from spreading more, to tell people about it, instead of being like, we have no idea what's going on. The cops called, the government called us and said, hey, you're leaking credit cards all over the place.
Oh man, that's not how you want to find out.
I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, it's not. No,
well, that's how Home Depot and
yes, I know.
Target found
Don't
out.
be like
when,
them.
Like, the FBI or the Secret Service called them up and be like, hey, somebody's definitely hacked your stuff. You might want to take a look at that.
It's no good.
If you have more monitoring, maybe you can find out sooner. And but even if that is how you find out, if you have a plan you can put in action, then that's.
It's also a good way to make it palatable to management and show that something that's worth your time and their funding and their attention. It does that too.
Management, they love reports and meetings.
So if it's something you're up against, doing something like that, not only does it make it look like you're on top of the ball, and then here's my last case for it, is if you're in a CYA situation, like maybe you're a contractor or you just want to make sure you're covered at work. If you're the person that's in charge of this kind of stuff and there's a breach that occurs, you're already looking pretty bad. People are going, hey, this guy didn't do his job, right? So when that happens, you come at that situation with a plan of action and you're ready to have everything, all of your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, you're ready to go. That's going to be the most face-saving thing for you in that kind of situation. Because
I kind of look at it like, maybe not the best model really, but the military had sets of procedures for nuclear weapons, right? And it's like, okay, when we get this message from National Command Authority, we open this book to this page and follow the checklist, right? And make sure that everything gets done. And if we follow this plan, we're
going by the book.
To do their part and make sure that things happen like they're supposed to.
Everybody does it by the book,
right? And so that somebody's fired a nuclear weapon at us. We need to respond, not run around like chickens with our heads cut off panicking. We need to counter launch as quickly as possible while we still can. Kind of thing.
And I'd say it's a good exercise in general. Alan, any other thoughts on that story?
No.
All right. Well, I'll tell you about something that's critical to my mission control, and that's IX Systems. Head over to ixsystems.com/TechSNAP to find out more and to let them know you appreciate them supporting the TechSNAP program. IX Systems gives you that white glove support with these systems built around these incredible Intel Xeon processors, battle-tested machines before they send them to you to make sure they're not going to break down in the first few hours that you plug them in. And they will work with you to design the perfect system. On the pre-show today, Alan and I were discussing essentially what I'm going to submit to them, requirements for storage upgrade at Jupiter Broadcasting. And we have a few questions that we know they will be able to fill in the blanks because they are experts in that technology.
What's the best way to do this, or should we do it this way?
You can ask them. They'll know. And Alan, we talked about it last week, but they now have a post up over at IX Systems about their Meet BSD event, the Meet BSD California 2014 recap. Looks like a great conference. Looks like a good venue, too. Those are really nice projectors that they had available for you to use.
The projectors actually were... the projectors that Western Digital had were horrible, old, 4x3.
The picture looks so good.
So the guys from Sony checked out a couple from the Sony office and brought them over.
I was going to say, because usually when I see photos at a conference, like the screen is all totally blown out. You cannot... But in some of these, you can clearly read the text.
Sony brought...
that's nice.
Epic Super HD projectors.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Look at Sony throwing in.
It's funny because they like firmware flashed them or something. So the default screen that comes up when there's nothing plugged in was like PlayStation 4.
I see that. I wonder what that was.
I'm like, there's no PlayStation. There was a PlayStation at the conference in a box that they gave away.
It's a PlayStation projector.
But yeah, Sony just had the regular projectors, and they just changed the background image on them to be the JPEG of the Sony logo or whatever.
Wow, looks like there's some interesting people. Rick Reed of WhatsApp was there.
Yep, people from Voxer, WhatsApp, Groupon, lots of other startups, lots of big places, big people.
This is so cool.
Juniper, Norse, Nahani Systems, which is a company behind Beehive. I don't know. Everybody was there. It was huge.
Yeah, it looks like a great event, and IX Systems is they're all about this kind of stuff because it keeps them connected with the people that honestly, a lot of these people are involved with IX Systems either as an employee or they work on projects that IX Systems is also involved with. So probably for them, it's also about getting together with all these people they work with on a regular basis as well. They have so many cool products over there, so many great different companies that use them. Scale Engine uses them, Jupiter Broadcasting uses them. And somebody that's been in IT for so many years, I really think that if I could have gone back in time and had a vendor like IX Systems that would have supported the solutions that I was trying to deploy, which still you run into resistance today, but back then it was unbelievable resistance from the hardware OEMs. They didn't know what the hell I was talking about. They didn't support the software I wanted to run, the open source solutions I wanted to implement, and they didn't really feel like they had a good grasp of not just the hardware, but the software stack I was going to run on top of that. Now you flash forward to 2014, and we've got companies like IX Systems firing on all cylinders. They've got the hardware solution that's dialed in with all of the best OEMs. They've got the software solution taken care of, because a lot of times the software you're going to be running, the people that create it are working at IX Systems. And then, of course, they got an incredible support team.
Like, when you buy from one of those other vendors, right, the systems are in a warehouse, in a box, and then when you buy them, they pick it up and ship it to you. With IX, they have machines sitting in their warehouse, but they're not put together yet. They put it together custom for you and then test it and then ship it to you. Because of that, there's actually a person in California that has hands on your system and puts it together and makes sure it all works. So they also can customize it, right? You get this worksheet from them, and you like, I need the BIOS configured this way and that way. You know, I want it to boot up this device.
Save so much time.
I want this to happen. You know.
Oh man, it saves so much time.
I bought a little short depth 1U server from them, and I had them install the OS. They have little like 4 gig USB sticks that are microscopic, and they
tiny.
Fit inside the motherboard, like on the motherboard inside the case.
My FreeNAS has one of those.
Yeah.
It's
and
nice.
so they built a whole system, and they installed the OS and configured it all for me. So literally, you just turned it on when it arrived, and it was good to go.
Yeah.
And I've used that to actually have them pre-configure a server exactly the way I wanted it, and I'm picky, and then ship it directly to a data center in the States without it ever even being in my hands.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
It's like, I need it configured with these IP addresses and these VLANs, and I want the IPMI on this other VLAN, and I need it all like this.
And they nail it too. They nail it,
right? It's not
right?
just perfect. I won't be able to remotely access the server when they do plug it in. Or I'm going to have to pay $100 an hour for remote hands to have them fix it. But no, I exited it exactly how I wanted.
ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. They've got a white paper there too if you need to grease the wheels or read a little bit more. The ultimate guide to buying a new server for open source. It's 11 key traits you should demand from your provider. And you can download it for free. They're not going to spam you. ixsystems.com/TechSNAP. And a big thank you to IX for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. Alan, I like that Bruce Schneier is drawing attention to a topic that gets on my nerves about hyping cyber threats all the time. So what's he have to say?
Right, and I almost feel like it's almost our fault, although we're trying to explain and kill the hype and talk about what's actually happening.
The technical merits when they exist. Yeah.
But yeah.
I think we do more debunking, to be honest, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But so that's why I thought I'd highlight this.
Yeah.
But yes, Schneier highlights a pair of essays on the topics on his blog, and his blog also has lots of comments from random people, which might be worth a peruse as well. But the first article details the reason why Cyber-Angst, rather than real critical thinking and problem solving, are likely to cause more harm than good, right?
OMG Cyber! I love it.
Yes. It's 13 reasons why hype makes for bad policy. Right? They say in 2014, the market for information security spending topped $70 billion.
No.
And so everybody wants a piece of the pie. So it's in everybody's advantage to make this seem like a really big deal, right? Several parties think that overstating cyber is in their own interest, right? Security firms like a clearly stated threat in order to sell their security products. Right? So, the Chinese and the Russians and the hackers and everybody's after all your stuff. You better buy all of our security products.
Right. So there's their incentive. That makes sense.
You know, contractors capitalize on fear to get funding from the executive branch, right? Contractors like, Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and all those defense contractors.
Well, and even the smaller ones now, like FireEye and Mandiant and...
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call FireEye/Mandiant small.
No, but I mean, they're not like, they're not
Yes.
Raytheon and, yeah.
Right, and they're just contractors at every level are taking advantage of this and getting huge swaths of money. Right?
Huge. That's why I think it's ridiculous you and I are doing this podcast, because I think we could be getting in on some of this.
The Pentagon finds a bit of hype useful in keeping the money coming in. The armed services each eye a larger slices of the budget pie. The White House loves some good cyber angst to nudge lawmakers to pass laws. And, fear of Chinese cyber attacks makes it easier for members of Congress to relate to voters, right? To if the voters are scared, it's easier to get them to accept stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, reporting cyber war means that journalists sell more copy and academics get more quotes and attention from the buzz, which
drives
lets them
more
get
clicks,
more funding for their research.
People get invited to more talks.
Yeah, exactly. So hype up cyber and everybody wins. So it comes down to a whole bunch of different things. But, so they have their 13 reasons. The first is hype creates confusion, right? People don't actually know what's going on, and so bad things.
And it's already a topic they struggle to understand.
Exactly. Also, hype limits results. We can't do anything about it if we can't clearly define it because of all the hype. Right? It's just like, all the hype around the word cloud means that cloud doesn't actually mean anything anymore.
Right. And we can't say what is cloud security because it's not one thing.
And, what is cybersecurity and what is cyber warfare?
Yes.
And, does that...
It's a nebulous it's a nebulous term.
Right. But
it's sort of like, it's kind of like terrorism.
Right. Yes. But it's like the difference between stealing some credit cards from Target, which was probably not a nation-state sanctioned attack, and taking out the electric grid.
Right, totally.
Are both of those cyber warfare? Are none of them cyber warfare?
One seems like cyber crime, right? I don't even like calling cyber, just computer crime. I mean, give me a break.
Cyber is a thing people did in the 90s.
Yeah.
Probably still do.
I think that's what Snapchat's used for, to be honest with you. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not really cyber once you have video.
Yeah, it's true.
That's just,
video chat.
Sex.
Yeah. There you go.
But heist also betrays the purpose, right? If the whole point was to raise awareness of cybersecurity issues, that's not what's happening anymore. It's just craziness. All right. It also erodes talent, right? If the government's going to try to staff up to deal with this, they're going to be hiring so many people that the good people, the people that are actually really good at this stuff, are going to become the minority, and so their influence is diluted. Right?
Yeah, and they'll go to these big fatty contractors probably.
Exactly. And the hype creates friction, right? It makes it harder to actually do anything because of all the hype. And hype breeds cynicism. People are like, oh, well, there's nothing we can do about cybersecurity. Everybody's getting hacked. We might as well just do nothing.
I feel like this is how the public feels.
Exactly. Hype degrades quality, right? Because, now while we have the problem of like, oh, well, what's the point in having antivirus software? Because it's not going to stop the newest viruses anyway. Mm-hmm. And so it also weakens the products.
Mm-hmm.
And it clouds analysis. We can't actually look at what's happening and what the trends are in cybersecurity because there's so much hype that everything's overblown and you can't get the raw information.
Yeah, this is so true. This is totally putting into words what's been bothering me.
Yep. And, hype kills nuance. We don't have the details and the small points that make a big difference aren't getting through.
The technical merits.
And hype escalates conflicts. Now we have, NATO saying, oh, Russia did this like great cyber war and they completely decapitated the Ukraine. It's like,
right.
Well,
or Russia hacked the White House is going on, right?
Right. Well, the one in the Ukraine, it's like, well, if the Ukrainians couldn't order their military units around because their computer system got compromised, then maybe they should have had a backup that didn't involve the computer system.
Right. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. Maybe a radio.
Yeah. Some cell phones, whatever. But, they're just using it to escalate a conflict. Mm-hmm. And, the same thing with, blaming Russia and China for every cybercrime that happened.
Remember that article we read last week at the end? The last paragraph is like, and experts will just often, they're probably going to blame it on this. So they didn't even bother.
Flip a coin.
Yeah.
Heads is China, tails is Russia.
Yeah.
That's who you blame. And so the hype feeds the hypocrisy because, you get people talking about security. Oh, you should do this and that, but then they're not doing anything or whatever, right?
Oh, man, great point. Yeah.
Yep. And then lastly, hype undermines trust. So nobody trusts the place they want to give their credit card to anymore. They don't trust the internet.
So it hurts the economy.
Yeah, the harm to the economy from people not trusting the internet or not, is kind of on a tangent, but not trusting the government because of all the NSA crap, or companies not being able to trust U.S. companies because they might be national security lettered by the NSA.
I haven't gone back to Target or P.F. Chang since their credit card breaches. I don't ever intend to shop there again, to be honest.
Right. Well, at some point, they'll have hit every grocery store, and you'll have to pick one.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Or maybe you're actually better off at one that's already been hit because maybe they'll try to learn their lesson.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably very
Although
true.
I'm waiting for, it won't be much longer before we hit the one place that has been hit a second time.
Right. Then it's really going to be embarrassing.
Yeah. But there was a couple other great headlines and quotes and stuff in this article. It's quite a few pages. You should definitely check out the PDF. They say, most journalists writing about leaked documents don't understand their own limitations. So, the leaked, or the limitations of the documents as well. So the journalists don't know enough about this stuff to actually be reporting on it. That's why people like Brian Krebs are so important, because he actually knows what he's talking about. A lot of journalists are only they're reading the third level analysis of it, and they don't really know what they're talking about.
And then they're getting publications in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal.
Well, yeah, we talked about one a couple of weeks ago. Some lady who thought she was getting hacked or something because her shift button was held down or something, or stuck down on her laptop, and something crazy was happening. She, oh, look, they're hacking. Obama's hacking my computer.
Yeah.
It's no.
See, it used to be, I have my computer's not running right, I must have a virus. Now it's, my computer's not running right, I must have been hacked. It's
right. But at the same time, they're also not understanding the limitations of the documents. The Snowden documents kind of showed us, and a lot of these, they were just PowerPoint slides. Right?
Yeah.
And, if you're the guy writing the PowerPoint slides, you're going to try to make it look sexier than it probably actually is. Or if this is something you're proposing doing and trying to get the money for it, you're not going to list any of the limitations of it. Right?
Right. You want it to be as sexy as possible.
Yeah. In the bureaucratic setup of a large intelligence agency, presentation skills can become more valuable than coding skills. It gets worse once it dawns on the PowerPoint warriors that technical jargon works like magic on superiors who may not fully grasp the details. So a bunch of those slides we saw in programs, we made the NSA out to be this big boogeyman, but they may think that they have these capabilities, and it turns out that they don't actually work that well for some of it, because they just got they bought fancy PowerPoint slides, not an actual thing.
I would argue results seem to speak louder than words. We've had several events that have happened since the NSA revelations that the NSA spying seems to have had zero impact on stopping. So it would seem the tools are not as effective as we were led to believe.
Exactly. Or and then they go on to talk about, they specifically mentioned FireEye bought Mandiant, but they've made more money off the news that they bought Mandiant drove their stock price up by 38% or 38 cents, something like that. And they made more money off that than they've made off selling whatever products Mandiant has.
Well, that shows you how crazy Wall Street is about these types of firms right
and
now.
They listed a bunch of, the difference between, buying an older, Cisco bought SourceFire, the guys that make Snort and ClamAV.
Love it.
That's been around for a long time.
Snort's awesome.
They had a whole product line. And then, FireEye bought Mandiant, which had been around for a while and had been doing investigation for the New York Times and stuff. And so there's that. And then there's, guys going out and spending $200 million on a startup that doesn't even have a finished product yet. But, we acquired these guys and we have all this expertise, and that drives their stock price up even though they're not shipping anything.
Right. Well, and they also hire these quote-unquote stars, like Kevin Mitnick is working for one of them as just a spokesperson.
Oh, is he? Because I thought he started his own one.
Oh, maybe that's what it was. That might be, or he's part of it. I don't know if he runs it or what it is, but he was just on CNN.
He'll sit on lots of boards and make all kinds of money and do.
Yeah, exactly. He was on CNN on Tuesday talking about the White House hack, and he doesn't really have any. He is not involved with the investigation at all. But
he has no special insight to it. He's just one of the most famous hackers.
Yeah, and so these companies they look for these I think didn't Mandiant have one of the Blackwater guys working for it? Did I read that?
Mandiant has a good guy named Robert Etzledge or something like that.
Yeah.
He's a friend of a friend.
I can't remember. There's a group of people, they get these people that are well known in certain industries. So then you go, if you're going to target, say, the defense industry to supply them support, you get sort of rock stars from those industries to be on your board of advisors. And these are essentially, fancy intrusion prevention and detection and testing and.
Well, because was the guy that left. Was it the NSA or the CIA went and started his own?
Oh, NSA, Keith Alexander, yeah.
Yes, Keith Alexander.
Yeah.
Who
charges $1 million a month, yeah.
Yeah, and wasted lots of government money on designing his office to look like the bridge of the Enterprise.
Right, and the thing about what's creepy about him is, and now they just put a stop to this a little bit ago, but he was having people from the NSA moonlight for his business, and he was hiring them as contractors to do work for him. So, it's just gross. It's just this incestuous group up there, and they get all intertwined with the politics of it all.
Yeah, and the last quote was, hype damages the public's trust and confidence in the internet.
Yeah, no kidding. That's sad.
That's bad for my business.
Well, it's sad because it undermines one of the greatest inventions of our lifetime.
Exactly.
So.
Between that and the government trying to break it all the time,
Right.
I don't know how we're supposed to get anything done.
It's amazing. No wonder we only use it for Twitter and YouTube.
Yeah. And then, so that's just the first essay.
Yeah, yeah.
There was actually a whole second one called "Enough! Stop Hyping Every New Security Threat."
Yeah.
This is over at InfoWorld. And
Yeah.
It's like, here's how it works these days. A security firm finds out about a vulnerability, then sends its PR folks into overdrive to promote it as if it's the biggest thing of all time.
Ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
It started with code names like, Night Dragon and Project Aurora and Operation Shady Rat.
Yeah.
And then we got into proactive marketing of individual exploits with super cool names, right? Remember, like Heartbleed had the whole web page and the logo,
with the logo
all ready for the announcement.
And they tried to do that too with Shell Shock to an extent, and they were fairly successful.
And Sandworm, remember they had like map of the world and the worms popping out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm gonna go look that up right now.
All this stuff, and it's like, is this the new norm? You find a vulnerability, you get your PR team and graphics designers involved to gin up some hype and sell your product or whatever. It's not quite the same as CVE 2014-0100001 or whatever, right?
Yep. Yeah, it doesn't work quite as well.
Vulnerabilities used to be this little short email to a
mailing list. Yeah.
To the full disclosure mailing list.
And honestly,
that's not what I found.
It's not been that long ago. Really, when we started this show, a big bulk of the security stuff we reported on would come from those kinds of things.
Well, and you remember there was actually a point where the guy running it shut down the mailing list, saying it's not worth doing anymore because everybody does it on their own website now.
Yeah.
And then somebody else picked it up and brought it back to life because open source people still prefer to do it that way rather than
the big PR machine.
Right. Whereas security firms like McAfee and Symantec like to do that, right?
Yeah.
But they see, they say I understand why firms are doing this, right? That's how they make money or whatever.
Sure.
They get maximum exposure to sell their products and services, like ambulance chasing lawyers. Yeah. But McAfee and Symantec made billions after Code Red and Slammer and Blaster and all those worms from like 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they did all that without pushing logos and fancy names and things like that. Well, I guess the viruses had names, but there wasn't quite the same hype as we saw with Poodle and
Heartbleed's the one that stands out to me the most. Poodle is good too, but Heartbleed, ooh.
Yeah, Heartbleed, when they had the website created and ready for the rollout,
CNN, CBS, they all picked it up. They ran with it because it had all the stuff they could latch onto. They could process and everything.
Yeah. Well, he actually gets into that one as well, but. One thing I want to mention is the tone of the article was somewhat dampened because there's an inline ad in the article from InfoWorld, the site it's on. An inline ad says, quote, "Watch out for 11 signs you've been hacked and learn how to fight back in InfoWorld's PDF report special."
That's no good. I'm going to turn off.
But discover how to secure your system with InfoWorld's security newsletter.
Oh, yeah. It's 11 signs you've been hacked. Yep.
Yeah, it's
fight back.
Basically some text right in between two paragraphs, looking almost like it was supposed to be part of the article.
Yeah.
But the tone is completely the opposite of the article, right? The article's all like, "Stop hyping security, this stuff. You're driving people nuts." And
then there it is.
People cynical. And they're like, "Watch out for 11 signs you've been hacked."
That's the very problem right there.
Yeah. And it's not even going to some external site. It's like
it's their own stuff.
Its own reports.
Auto-injected into the article. Like their CMS probably just loads it in there.
Oh, look, it's related.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, tags. Yes, I know how to do. I know to do with those. Mm-hmm.
That's as bad as you're reading an article on Home Depot getting hacked, and there's a big ad for Home Depot at the bottom. It's like, misplaced ad.
Yeah.
But there was one quote near the end of this guy's article that I just couldn't help but make sure I called out to everybody. It says, "Can you imagine how a real big one will be marketed in the future? Cue the operatic music and overlay graphics like on CNN, right? It'll be like the Weather Channel's Storm of the Century, a full-time news cycle with cybersecurity pros being blown around in heavy winds, showing crying website windows, holding wet cat gifs among digital portal ruins."
Yeah, it's going to be, there probably will be something big happen eventually.
But yeah, I can just picture, CNN, special graphics and sound effects and all that.
Virtual sets, in the green screen room and the virtual studio that they have there. That would be pretty cool. I'd probably watch it at least, if nothing else, just for the ridiculousness.
This says some the chat room says no. CNN will have a touchscreen cyber map.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you got to have the big touch screen. Oh, wow. Yeah, well, boy, that felt good. That felt like we got some stuff off our chests that we've been needing to get off. And they're both good full reads if you want to. Alan has links in the show notes.
Yeah, and I feel almost bad that the next article seems to be exactly what we were talking about.
Well, we're I don't know. We do a pretty good job of busting through it. I mean, some of this...
it's like the actual post.
Yeah.
Specifically the video goes with.
It's on an upwards trajectory, my friend. I mean, it's just getting crazier and crazier and more. It has not slowed down at all. We picked an interesting time to start this show because we've sort of been watching this really develop. So we'll get to that next story, which does look like it.
All started with Dropbox and Sony.
Yeah. Next story does look actually pretty interesting. First, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor. They're incredibly interesting. DigitalOcean. I've got so many droplets now, I feel like I should be some sort of gangster walking around with droplets swinging from my neck. That's how cool I am. You got to go over there right now and check them out. And remember this, Snap November when you check out, and I'll tell you why. Snap November. DigitalOcean. Let me tell you about them. Simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way for you to spin up a cloud server. I don't care if you've been doing system administration work for 15 years or if you've never installed or started up your own server. They got you covered, and you're going to be thankful for DigitalOcean's awesome control panel. Their interface is simple and intuitive, and power users can replicate the control panel on a much larger scale with DigitalOcean's straightforward API. Not only is there a bunch of community apps that are already taking advantage of it, but you could write your own. You could snap it into your Puppet system. I'm telling you, it's sweet. It's a great-looking API. And they got data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and London. But here's the best part. You get started for $5 a month. You're going to get your server spun up in less than 55 seconds. And at only $5, for only $5 a month, you're going to get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, and a terabyte of rock and transfer connected to those data centers with tier 1 bandwidth. And right now, DigitalOcean's paying $200 for a tutorial. If you've got something you know how to set up and you want to write something for them, head over to their community section. We actually have a link just right in the show notes, and they'll pay up to 200 bones for writing a tutorial. And they've even got an open editor's position right now because they are getting so many tutorials from you guys that they need to sift through it. So you might also be able to get a job. Go over to DigitalOcean. Use the promo code SNAPNovember when you check out. Go spin up a droplet and try out a few things. They have some impressive technologies just worth playing with. For example, I'm looking at some of their one-click applications you can deploy, and you just go right on here, GitLab, boop. Wanting to deploy the entire LAMP stack? One click. Drupal? One click. WordPress, Ruby on Rails, Node.js, Redmine. That might actually be extremely useful. Ghost, Django, all of it. You need a basic Docker infrastructure, one-click deployment. It's really cool, and it's just one of the many I like about DigitalOcean's management system, the speed, the pricing, all of it, and also that reliability. I mentioned I've got multiple droplets. I don't think any of them have ever gone down. DigitalOcean says, you're going to get a 99.99% uptime. They've got an SLA for that, for their network and their power and their virtual server availability, and I think that's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever had any outages, though. It's a great service, and the pricing plans make a lot of sense, very well structured. You can upgrade as you need to and move up. They have hourly pricing available as well. DigitalOcean.com. Use the promo code SNAPNovember. SNAPNovember will give you a $10 credit. You just apply that to the account. SNAPNovember, you can go in there and apply that. It'll apply a $10 credit to your balance, and you can try out a rig for months for absolutely free. DigitalOcean.com. And a huge, huge thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the TechSNAP program.
Great question from the chat room. It says, new question, is this cloud hosting only for developers who have lots of experience, or can it be used by anyone who knows how to set up something like WordPress?
Oh, all of the above.
The latter. You don't even actually have to know how to set up WordPress. You can have them spin up an instance that already has WordPress installed. One-click
deployment. That's how Matt's got a few WordPress sites he maintains for a couple of folks, and he spins them up with the one-click deployment on droplets. He gets them all set up for them. And then if they want to take it over, DigitalOcean allows you to transfer the droplet to another account. So that's a really nice handoff service that Matt can do for folks. And they have zero experience. And, Matt's got some definite, Linux experience. But for him, if it's going to be like something that's going to be a huge time investment, he'd probably just prefer not to do it. So he just goes, spins up the server, does a one-click WordPress deployment on top of an Ubuntu. I think he's doing 14.04, and he's done. And it's a really nice system. Okay, so the Dark Hotel what is this, Alan? What are we talking about today? This is a story.
Advanced persistent threats.
Yeah, a story of unusual hospitality. The subtitle says. That sounds great.
There's actually a YouTube video that goes with this. It's about a minute.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to play it?
Explains it. You could. I don't know if you want me to explain it first or after.
Oh, go ahead. You can set it up, or why don't we let the video and then you can fill in the gaps, I suppose, huh? So that way we don't have to repeat. All right, yep, I'll play it right now. Here we go.
The Dark Hotel espionage campaign is a current threat actor. Some of its offensive activity is tied to the Wi-Fi services of a careful chosen assortment of hotels and business centers in a number of countries. In the modern world, business executives travel a lot, and a lot of valuable business data travels with them. In the modern world, business needs require executives to be permanently online.
This is some fancy animation.
Dark Hotel has found a way to take advantage of this and steal sensitive business information. Criminals infect hotel networks with spying software. After a successful infection, the criminals wait for their targeted executives to check into the hotels. As soon as they connect to the internet, they get hit. Next, they trick them into installing a software update, which is in fact a spying program. After that, they collect all the business-related data from the target's PC. According to Kaspersky Lab researchers, Dark Hotel has been operating for 4 years and is active right now. Kaspersky Lab products successfully detect and block the malware used by the Dark Hotel actor.
Wow. Holy crap.
This is kind of the point we were making before.
Wow.
But they're like, yes, Kaspersky antivirus is the only one that can protect your corporate executives from having all their Word docs and PowerPoint stolen.
That was, so we'll have a link in the show notes if you're on the audio feed. It's all animated. Lots of, you could probably hear all the computer graphics sound effects that it has. Yeah. It's very fancy. Somebody spent some money on that. It's good voiceover too.
Yeah. And I think it might have been voiceover talent because you could tell that was like the 10th time they had to repronounce Kaspersky correctly.
Yeah.
They're like, no, do it again. You didn't say it right.
Yeah.
Get that right. Yeah, so Kaspersky Lab has some details on this new advanced persistent threat that specifically targets business executives who stay at hotels. So basically, delivers a campaign by like spear phishing targets with highly advanced flash zero-day exploits, spreading through P2P in lots of different ways. But they're using flash 0 days. And basically, they go take over the Wi-Fi network at a hotel, and then using that, they can do like a man-in-the-middle, right? So they almost a captive portal that only targets certain people, and when they get it, the captive portal says, "Oh, you need to install this. You have to install this update to be able to use the internet here at this hotel." And then some of the tricks are they actually have signed malware, right? Like we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Says they delegitimize certificate authorities to further their attacks. They abuse weakly implemented digital certificates to sign their malware code. The actors abuse the trust of at least 10 different certificate authorities in this manner. Sometimes, if they steal the code signing certificate from some other company, then they can sign a bunch of their code and it'll look legitimate. Currently, they are stealing and reusing other legitimate certificates to sign their mostly static backdoor and info stealer toolkits. So you go to the hotel, you go to use the internet, your laptop matches a profile of, the type of laptop an executive would have or whatever, and you get this pop-up saying, hey, you need to install this update in order to go forward. And, it's a Flash exploit or it's a virus that you actually download and install or whatever. They have versions for Mac and Windows. And, it infects the laptop, and then the info stealer can go on there and find every Word doc, PowerPoint, and spreadsheet, and all the data they might want, and exfiltrate it. And like we said, the updates look legitimate because they're actually digitally signed. So even if you have fancy corporate security software on your laptop that won't allow any software that's not signed to run, it's signed. So it goes through it anyway, right? And then once they have it installed, not only can they steal all your documents then, but the malware is still on your computer even after you leave the hotel. Right? And so it can keep filtering stuff back out of your laptop until it gets discovered and erased, or just until forever. Right?
Yeah, and it would make sense because if you keep it on there, you actually almost infect them at the hotel is sort of like that's not the goal, is it? You get it on there, right? Yeah. You want to keep it on there.
It's the place where you can most easily do a man-in-the-middle attack on them to be in the position to throw this interface in front of them.
And, in a hotel, getting on the Wi-Fi, you're going to get
spear phishing, but that doesn't fool everybody.
No, the hotel's the perfect place because you never know what kind of weird prompts you're going to get. And
exactly. And silly HP things or
CAPTCHAs that could come up and captive portals. And, you're just putting stuff in there because you just want to get on the Wi-Fi and check your email.
And it says the more interesting traveling targets include top executives from U.S. and Asian companies that do business or investment in the Asia-Pacific region, including executives from very large electronics manufacturers, investment, capital, private equity type things, pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, chemicals, automotive manufacturers and assembly, and defense industry, law enforcement, military, NGOs, everything. And they can target all of that. I say, when Conspiracy Labs researchers visited dark hotel incident destinations with honeypot machines, they did not attract the dark hotel attacks, which suggests the APT acts selectively. They're actually targeting specific people or, they're looking for certain things, and if they don't see them, they don't bother attacking you, reducing the chance that, other people will find it or that the hotel IT staff will find it or whatever. Further work demonstrated just how careful these attackers were to hide their activities. As soon as a target was effectively infected, they deleted their tools from the hotel staging point and then disappeared. So they would literally hack the hotel network,
self-destruct them,
set it up, steal the information, then clean up after themselves, leaving the hole so they can come back later, but not leaving their tools behind for someone to find.
Wow, not bad, not bad.
So they were targeting very specific people to steal very specific information about, you can imagine the, Chinese would love to have information from Lockheed Martin on, stealth technology, or that, they'd love to know what Ford's next big invention is in fuel economy so they can steal that for a Chinese auto manufacturer or whatever, right? And lots of different, some of these are just companies after stealing each other's information.
I bet that's a big part of it.
To do with governments.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
In some countries in Asia, the business and government are almost the same thing.
And sometimes in the United States as well. Any other thoughts on that story?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry there's not a little more detail in that it actually kind of falls right into the category of stuff we were talking about in the previous article about overhyping it, having the fancy video with the nice voiceover and everything. But
I think I like your version of breaking down the technical aspects of it.
Right. But I honestly just wish they had actually posted a little more technical aspects.
Well, they don't. That's what that almost is.
They say that they found versions of this stuff going back to 2007. These guys have been going for a long time. They say interesting is that it's such a mix of really good infrastructure that's all using flexible encryption and some stuff that's just weak and thrown together. And they found that the network has expanded and contracted over time as they needed it. And their peak activity was in 2012 or 2010.
Oh, really?
And they're actually doing a little less now. And it mostly seems to be when they have a particular target, they ramp up and go after them.
They tossed in some interesting details, like where it pulls down some of the files and stuff in their PDF, which is...
Oh, I didn't see the PDF.
Yeah, it's not... Yeah, they have it underneath the video. It's I
had to write 6 articles worth of show note and...
and it pretty much what you covered is pretty much the extracts of this. There's some details in here, but for the most part,
yes. Actually, the stuff I was looking for, it turns out, is here. I'm just blind.
And they talk about some of the they've talked to Microsoft about some of the vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So the whole PDF's there if people want to dig in on their own.
Yeah, nice 28-page.
Some keylogger code there. Ooh, go enjoy, kids, enjoy. Yeah. All right, Alan. Well, I'll tell you about something I enjoy. That's Ting. It's my mobile service provider. That's right. Go over to techsnap.ting.com right now to save $25 off your first Ting device. If you have a Ting-compatible device, I got good news. You bring it over to Ting, and they'll give you a $25 credit. That might almost get you 2 months of service. It did for me. techsnap.ting.com. What makes Ting different? You only pay for what you use. Ting takes your minutes, your messages, your megabytes. They add them all up at the end of the month in whatever bucket you fall into. Hooey, that's all you gotta pay. It's some sort of fancy black magic. I don't understand how it works, but it sure does. It's a flat $6 a line, and then it's just your usage on top of that. They have a great dashboard too, and no hold customer service. You call them 1-855-TING-FTW anytime between 8 a.m. or 8 p.m., and a real human being answers the phone. Their dashboard will let you manage and deactivate devices, set up alerts. They have an app that goes with their awesome dashboard as well, and of course their site's responsive, which I appreciate when I'm on the go. But you've heard me talk about Ting. You've heard me say how great Ting is and how happy I've been with Ting now for almost 2 years and how much damn money I'm saving with Ting. But now Consumer Reports is saying it. Consumer Reports surveyed actual wireless carriers, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And guess what? Ting came out on top for people who are happy with their wireless service. Ting came out on top, and that's an independent consumerreports.org report. Go over to techsnap.ting.com. And if you've been eyeballing that Nexus 6, now's the time to order your SIM from Ting. And you can go grab your Nexus 6 from the Play Store or wherever you're going to get it. You pop that Ting SIM in there. Bob is indeed your uncle. Techsnap.ting.com is where you go to get started. Start saving your money right now. With the holidays coming up, too, it'd be a great opportunity to either grab a mobile device for somebody and this is actually something that's kind of a unique thing about Ting. Not only do they have a whole price range of devices, so you'll be able to get a gift for somebody or yourself that's within your price range, but then because of the way the service is structured, like I wouldn't give somebody just a phone and be like, yeah, here's a phone, now go pay $80 a month minimum, right? That what kind of gift is that? But you give a Ting phone and you just say activate it when you're ready and you'll just pay for your usage. That is awesome, and it's perfect for that kind of thing.
Right. If you don't use it a lot, it's $6.
Yeah, there's no problem with that. Or you can get a MiFi hotspot. Maybe it's a great time to get somebody a MiFi hotspot if they need a little data on the go. Ting's got lots of great tri-band MiFi hotspot devices. $6 hotspot once you buy it. TechSNAP.ting.com. It's just your usage on, and then that's all you pay. You don't have to pay into a big account, none of that business, and they have a how much would you save calculator. If you've been thinking about it, I recommend you do it. TechSNAP.ting.com. How much would you save? Click that link. Go in there. Put your current usage in there and see what I'm talking about. TechSNAP.ting.com. And a huge thank you to for sponsoring the TechSNAP program. You guys are awesome. Hey, Alan, we should probably give a mention to a brand new episode of BSD Now that just came out because this is sort of our halfway point in the show, so people want to get their next download going. Rump kernels, Alan? What's a rump kernel?
It's basically using part of the kernel in user space. Interesting stuff is what it is.
I think so. I think that is pretty interesting. So go check out episode 64 of BSD Now. I've been told it's an epic episode.
Yes. Unintentionally, it ended up being like 2 hours.
Whoa.
Which is like twice the average length of a BSD Now.
Yeah.
And the interview was
twice?
actually... Normally, they're only about an hour. Like, we usually only record for an hour.
Yeah.
And we recorded for 2 hours. The interview happens to actually be one of our shorter ones because we actually got... when I was interviewing that Justin Cormack at your BSDCon, we were doing it near the end of the day, and we ran into the point where they were actually keys out of the building.
Oh, yeah, that happened to us at Ohio, too, yeah. It's like, okay, and,
so they're like waving. It's like, hurry up. I'm like, okay.
Got to cut this short. Yeah.
Yep.
Episode 64 of BSD Now. Go start your local downloader, or just subscribe and get it automatically. But Alan, with the news all done, that means it's time for the TechSNAP feedback. Thanks for sending your emails to techsnap@jupiterbroadcasting.com or popping that contact link at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting site, or even better, starting a thread in our subreddit over at techsnap.reddit.com. And I want to give a mention to our friends over at DuckDuckGo who are reaching out to our audience to get your help to make search more relevant, more secure, and more open source through their DuckDuck Hack instant answer platform. Yes, DuckDuckGo has an instant answer platform called DuckDuck Hack, and it's so sweet because it's a way you can go submit a pull request and give an answer to the DuckDuckGo search engine to make whatever topic people might be searching for even more relevant. I got a couple of examples. I think you can probably wrap your head around this, but I got a couple of examples I want to show you. I just noticed one. I've never even seen this one before. And it just, it's like discovering like an Easter egg. So right now on DuckDuckGo.com, you can type in gold ounce. And then it'll show you immediately 10 currency conversions to the gold ounce. So a yuan, or however you say that. But here's the one I care about. $1,189 in USD. 949 euros right now. They got them all up here. So this is the Canadian dollar, Alan, $1,345.38 for an ounce of gold right now. Here's also a good troubleshooting one. If you are out in the field and you're troubleshooting somebody's flash, or you're on a rig seeing what your flash version is at, go to duckduckgo.com, type in flash version. It'll come right back with the version of flash you have installed. All of these are instant answers powered by duckduckhack.com. So go over to duckduckhack.com, submit your pull request, and start something. There's also a quick start guide that'll get you rolling. If you've heard me talk about this, you think there might be something you want to do, but you're worried you might not have the skills for it, think again, my friend, and check out this good quick start guide that Hack has put together. Now, the reason why I want to keep mentioning this is we have an opportunity here to change yet another monoculture that has cropped up over the last decade. And we have an opportunity to make search also more private. And there's been some recent browser announcements that I think some of us are disappointed in, and this is our chance to sort of move the needle in a different direction and continue to give people the answers they're looking for. And if you have a project, especially, like I think this would be a great opportunity for open source. If you have an open source project or product that you are passionate about, like Alan and FreeBSD or ZFS, if there's a way you could go to duckduckhack.com and work with that to make it so when other people are searching for that topic, they'll get more information. You could sincerely help that project reach more people and help people work with that project. That's an incredible opportunity, and it's a huge scale you can work with, and you get started by going to duckduckhack.com, submit your pull request, and get started. And just a pro tip, I think there's a little spot in there you can tell them TechSNAP sent you, and then their editors will keep an eye out, and they'll even work with you and stuff. It's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Duckduckhack.com. Go check it out, you guys. Go make search just a little bit better for everybody. A little more private and open source. duckduckhack.com. Okay, so we got like a FreeNAS couple of emails. So we are doing 2 shows this week, so we're stretching our emails out over 2 episodes. So if your email didn't make it in this week, it's probably in next week's episode because I think we got all of them in here, but we're just kind of separating them out. So I thought we'd do a FreeNAS theme for this week's episode, and Eric writes in with our first question. Hello, Chris, Allen, the chat room, and everyone else who's listening. Gosh, Eric's a nice guy. He says, I figured I'd follow your recommendation and pop that contact link. I'm a longtime listener from Sweden, and I thought I'd try my luck to extract some wisdom from you and Alan. Recently, I've been getting more and more tired of my Synology NAS, and I thought I'd build myself a server. The main usage will, of course, be file storage, but along with that, I will be using it to get rid of all of those pesky proprietary services I am currently using, Dropbox, iCloud, etc. He says he's going to try out OwnCloud for a little while. He also wants to be able to set up OpenVPN, or another VPN service if we have one in mind. Here's what he's going to be working with, Alan. He's got a motherboard with an integrated CPU, the ASRock. How do you say that?
ASRock.
I never say it out loud. The C2750D41 motherboard, 16 gigabytes of ECC RAM, a passive cooled Silverstone 450 watt power supply. He's got a DS380 chassis from Silverstone and 4 3 terabyte Western Digital Reds. Now he says, "Do you think I've missed anything? I'm aiming to have." He says, "I'm aiming to have too high with too little." I don't know exactly what he means with that, but this could be of interest to your listeners or our community, since I think there's a lot of people out there that want to do something like I do. Thanks again for the awesome show. So, what do you think, Alan? Got 16 gigabytes of RAM, 4 3 terabyte Western Digital Reds here. I don't know exactly what the CPU is that comes with that motherboard, but I could look it up while you kind of assess.
The C2750 is the integrated Atom. The 8-core server one.
Okay.
So yeah, it's very similar to a FreeNAS Mini.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, huh?
Yeah, that'll work. Good stuff.
So he's gonna put. So he goes on FreeNAS on there. Now here's my question for you. This is what came to my mind.
He missing a little USB stick or something to actually put FreeNAS on.
Okay.
Like he's got the 4 data drives, but I don't see a small MSATA or a USB stick or something.
You think you should do a USB stick?
That's what most people do. I had the USB stick in one of my servers fail the other day. That was annoying.
That's my only hesitation.
Actually, mine was I had a pair of them in ZFS Mirror, and one of them failed. And luckily, so I didn't lose anything when them failed. But
they do seem like they have a limited lifespan.
There are better ones for it. The one I got from IX is working flawlessly.
Yeah, that's true. The one I have from IX is a couple years old and hasn't had a problem.
Yeah. It also depends what you're doing. FreeNAS specifically mounts the file system like read-only, so the USB stick is used at boot and then not used at all. Whereas mine, I was running a whole ZFS pool off of it, so it was getting written to every 5 seconds.
So here's my other question. So that was question number 1, is he needs to have an OS storage, maybe a thumbstick. I mean, the thing is...
I think you can do it on a partition on the drives, but...
Yeah, the only thing is if he's going to do OwnCloud installation, so he's going to be installing some software.
Well, the software will actually go on the data drives on a FreeNAS install, right? Because it goes in a jail.
Okay.
plug-in jail, so it
doesn't go on the
data
OS drive.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, but he just needs the OS drive. Like even your settings go on the data drive, so that if the USB stick fails, you can just put a newer version of FreeNAS on it, and it just works.
Yeah, and the data's fine. So if this was, if he was coming from a ZFS box, you'd probably recommend he do like ZFS send, right, to move the data between the boxes. But
Right,
if he's
but
coming from a Linux,
Synology,
yeah,
right?
which is kind of a lockdown Debian-based box. So what is the best option to move the data?
rsync.
You think?
rsync is nice because if it gets interrupted, you resume and it won't copy data it already did.
And do that, maybe initiate that from the FreeNAS?
Yep, you can do it from the FreeNAS. Depending on the network and the disk and stuff, you can run 2 or 3 of them on different data sets at the same time to max out the network or whatever.
Yeah.
It'll depend on how fast your Synology is. Your FreeNAS, writing data to it, I challenge you to be able to have it not be able to keep up.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
Because of the way ZFS works, especially when you're just writing data with rsync, it's going to just swallow that data into RAM as fast as it can and only write it out to disk in bursts. So
now
it's going to be able to handle any amount of data you throw at it.
Here's my super crazy question that I've always kind of wondered. If his Synology could be connected somehow, like this is just more hypothetical because I've wondered this for myself. If there was a way to like maybe take those drives out of Synology and put them like into an eSAT external storage or a USB storage, could that could FreeNAS or I guess FreeBSD underneath it, would it recognize extended 4 and mount it, and then could he just copy the data that way?
Extended 4 requires a driver from the ports tree to be able to do,
and that might be tricky
I
under
don't know about
FreeNAS.
doing that in a FreeNAS.
Yeah.
On a regular FreeBSD machine, it should
Just get the driver. Okay.
But
I wondered about that.
ext4, I know with ext3 you can still mount it as a 2. Can you mount an ext4 as an ext2
Mm-hmm.
and just lose the journal?
I'm 95% positive. I guess I've never done it though. So maybe
Because if you're just reading and never writing to it, you should definitely be able to do that.
I believe you can.
There is ext2 built in, so you would, yes, be able to read-only mount.
that'd probably be better.
your Synology.
I would probably want to mount it as
exactly.
read-only.
And then be able to pull the data that way. And that would be faster, especially if you're constrained by your network at like 100 megabytes a second.
Nice. Well, good luck, Eric. And then
Chat room says that you can. So yes, if you could pull the drives out and connect them, then that's, he doesn't
say. It's just
I haven't looked at the Silverstone chassis he's mentioning, but if it has room for more than 4 hard drives, then he could.
I've thought about like
pop
if
the
I
extra
was
drives from the Synology in there as well.
Yeah.
And do that.
I've kind of
Depends
thought
on the
about that.
Synology.
It seems
Does Synology are the drives like built in? You can't take them out, or
no,
are
they're
they
replaceable. Yeah,
okay.
that was so. I have a Synology. I thought about if I pop those drives out, put them in a thing, hooked it up, that'd be a really nice, solid way to transfer it. Even I suppose if it was just for a couple of hours USB, I don't like hooking all that much data over USB.
Network is going to be faster than USB.
Yeah, that's true.
Because a gigabit network will be able to do 100, 120 megabytes a second. USB
So maybe it's not even worth doing then?
25. Well, if you connect in the hard drives, if it's 4 hard drives
Over
you
SATA.
get 400 plus megabytes.
If it's over SATA, though.
Yeah. So if you even connect the hard drives over SATA,
Yeah.
then you could get 400 megabytes a second instead of 100.
What if it's eSATA? You think we just still do it? I know you're not loving eSATA.
If it's one eSATA port,
Yeah.
then you're probably limited there to 300.
Still, though. I mean, then you also have the resilience of the fact that it's a physical connection.
Right.
That's
But
nice.
yeah, rsync will work. If your Synology has 2 ports and your FreeNAS has 2 ports, you can do 2 gigabits a second, which could help.
The nice thing about the rsync method is once you learn it, you could apply that over and over again. Then you could also apply it to backup scripts. I mean,
Yeah, rsync is very nice. You get a progress report while it's happening.
that's nice too. And the resume functionality. You know what? To be honest,
resume is the biggest thing.
I would probably recommend rsync even if you did come up with a way to do a local copy.
Well, yeah. If you're doing the local copy by eSATA, USB,
Yeah.
plugging the drives directly and whatever,
Still do rsync.
I would still do rsync.
Yeah.
I do that for just copying files between 2 drives and stuff on the same computer. It works just as good over SSH, but it doesn't have to be. rsync has quite a few advantages.
Okay, Alan, are you ready for our next?
If you're doing ZFS to ZFS, the advantage to a ZFS send is you're not doing files individually.
You're doing blocks.
You're doing the block stream, which means there's no small stop and start operation between each file.
And if it's compressed, does it decompress it in that scenario, or will it just move the compressed?
with ZFS, by default, ZFS send decompresses the data, and then when you receive, if you have compression on, it compresses it again.
Yeah.
There was work at the ZFS hackathon at
cool.
their Dev Summit thing they had last weekend to make an option to leave it compressed so that when you're sending over the network, you're not decompressing it.
Yeah, and then recompressing it.
Especially if your system is compressed on the disk, and we're going to decompress it, send it over SSH, which is going to compress it, then I'm going to compress it, then I'm going to receive it to ZFS and compress it again and store it on the disk.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that does get a little crazy. Okay, so this is really cool. I'm excited about Josh for Trunks submitted to our TechSNAP subreddit. Hey, everyone. I'm not sure if I should be posting here or basting out because it applies to both, but we're big FreeNAS fans all across the board. He says, I recently helped produce several plugins for FreeNAS, and I wanted you guys to know about them. This is really cool because I don't know if you read, but BitTorrent Sync just announced a whole new pricing structure that's kind of expensive. And so he wrote a SyncThing plugin, which is now called Pulse. It's been available for a few months, and he just updated to the latest version. So you have a Pulse/SyncThing plugin now for FreeNAS if you want to do free open source file synchronization. MineOS, a web interface used to create and manage Minecraft server instances. You know, that could be really cool for home because Dylan's starting to get into Minecraft.
Everybody's kids wants to play Minecraft.
Yeah. And Media Browser, an open source alternative to Plex, which I have heard and been told is super awesome. In fact, I've been meaning to do a review of it on Linux Action Show, which I should do very soon. Media Browser, man, FreeNAS. You know, when I first started using FreeNAS, the most disappointing thing for me was this plugin system, and over the last few years, it has gotten so awesome. Like, it did not sit there and be negative.
5 other things I need to get around to writing plugins for someday.
Yeah. I mean, MineOS, I'm thinking to myself, that might be perfect, actually. And SyncThing is a no-brainer. And Media Browser, I don't know how I didn't know about it earlier. So now that you can get an easy-to-use Media Browser server backend, man, FreeNAS is getting better and better.
Like Plex is.
Right, it's open source.
You know, it's like I think like a third of all the FreeBSD developers that I know have a Plex server running at their house.
Plex is huge, yeah. A lot of people are using Plex, but
Media Browser's apparently doing quite a good job of competing with that.
Yeah, so thank you to Josh for Trunks. And you know, if you're out there and you're working on stuff like this too, why not let us know? We'll give you a free plug, and Josh's got a link in the post, which you'll find in the show notes.
And writing these plugins isn't that hard. You don't have to be a FreeBSD expert or anything. Actually, it helps most if you're an expert at the application you're writing the plugin for. That's the hard part.
Is it really? So is it a matter of figuring out how to install it and then packaging it up somehow, or how does it? What is it exactly?
Honestly, if you can install a PCBSD VM, they have a tool.
Oh, no kidding!
Like, you use the PBI wizard thing that Chris wrote to build the package.
That's genius, Alan.
Yep.
That's the benefit of
shortly with the new version, you'll be able to install these plugins via a web interface from your phone.
That's the crazy thing ever. I mean, FreeNAS is really getting slick.
Yes. Well, some of it is features they're stealing from PCBSD, but yes.
Well, is it stealing when it's all under kind of the same umbrella? It's kind of the great. Not only is it all open source, but it's all under IX Systems too, which is crazy great. Anyways, thank you, Josh for Trunks, for sending that in. And I think I'm going to try out the Media Browser here on the FreeNAS at the studio. I'm not saying that Rikai has a huge video collection, but I'm just saying Rikai has a huge video collection. And so, like, if you want to put something to the test, throwing it at that collection will do it. And I think Media Browser would be a good one to try it and see how it handles it. Okay, so don't worry. If we didn't get to your email, we got more. We're just going to cover them in next week's episode. That means, though, we are at inbox 0 for TechSNAP right now. So I either missed your email or maybe I hate you. I'm not quite sure. I mean, you can you make up the scenario. You fill in the blanks. But it does mean we need your email. So go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, pop that contact link, and choose TechSNAP from the dropdown. Or even better, go to the subreddit over at techsnap.reddit.com. And then you can have our insightful community give their responses. You get a response a little bit faster, and it's also going to catch our eye. But either way, we love to get your emails and answer your questions here on the TechSNAP program. And now's your opportunity to get an email in front of us. We'll be back live with the show the week after the U.S. Thanksgiving, answering your questions. We'll have an episode for you next week, but just not a live show. So TechSNAP at jupiterbroadcasting.com, contact link, or the subreddit, and we'll read it in 2 weeks. All right, Alan, with the feedback all done.
Chris complains that he gets too much email, and now what he really wants is for you to email.
More email. That's right.
Sorry, email the show, not Chris specifically.
Yeah. It is a separate. It goes to a separate place. That's how I cope. Seriously. Okay, Alan, with the feedback all done, that means it's time for the TechSNAP Roundup. Welcome to the TechSNAP Roundup. Yeah, that's what that crazy music means. Now, the Roundup are stories, well, they just didn't fit at the top of the show, but we wanted to give you some links to follow up on after the show, and a lot of these links came from our subreddit over at techsnap.reddit.com. This next one blows my mind. If I was still a Windows admin, I'd be like, this is why they don't pay me enough. Right here, Ars Technica has the story. Unscheduled Windows updates rolling out, kills critical security bug that's currently being exploited. And this one gives untrusted users control over a Windows domain controller. That's bad. Yeah.
That's
not good.
Yeah.
Not good. That's about a worst-case scenario. So Microsoft has released an unscheduled update to patch a critical security hole that's being actively exploited against Windows servers, obviously. A flaw in the Windows implementation of the Kerberos protocol allows attackers with credentials for low-level accounts to remotely hijack extremely sensitive Windows domain controllers and then allocate privileges. So on a large network, you would be able to escalate your privileges network-wide. The privilege escalation bug already being exploited in highly targeted attacks, so highly targeted being the keyword there, and gives hackers extraordinary control over the vulnerable networks. The only way, by the way, this is from a statement by Microsoft, once your domain has been compromised, the only way to fix it or quote-unquote remediate the problem with a high level of certainty is to completely rebuild the entire domain, according to Microsoft engineer Joe Balick, who wrote it in a blog post accompanying the patch on Tuesday. An attacker with administrative privileges, he wrote, on a domain controller can make nearly unbound number of changes to a system that can allow the attacker to persist their access long after the update has been installed. That's the critical problem. Yeah. Therefore, it's critical to install.
100 users with different names, and you would miss one of them, and they'd be able to get back in.
The patch came on the same day that security research firm NSS Labs reported recently discovering reliable attacks in the wild. So they had to hustle.
So this is one of those ones where if the secretary clicks on a link in an email and gets her computer compromised, even though she's a regular user and has no admin rights,
boom,
they could then use her account to take over the whole domain and steal everything.
So and it seems to be a bug in their Kerberos implementation. Ars Technica has a pretty good write-up about it. So go follow up on that. We got another Microsoft story right up here at the top. There was an Azure outage, I guess, huh?
Yes, for 11 hours for the Azure storage service. And
yikes.
So they have a postmortem explaining what happened and how they fixed it and so on.
As part of a performance update, they say it was caused.
They were trying to make it faster and instead broke it.
They say once we detected this issue, the change was rolled back promptly. Promptly is up for debate.
11 a.m. the next day. It's like when we bothered to get out of bed, we then found out about it and we're like, oh, okay, we'll roll it back.
They say a limited subset of customers are still experiencing intermittent issues, and our engineering support teams are actively engaged to help customers through this. You know, this isn't the first Azure. This is maybe the third that we've covered in the roundup.
Yep. Well, Amazon, slightly more frequently than Amazon, but over the course of its lifetime, it's in the stage Amazon was in a little while ago when they were having a bunch of problems.
Yeah, infancy, it's growing pains, right? Don't you think? So
people from Microsoft Azure were at MeetBSD. They were promoting running FreeBSD on Azure.
No kidding.
How they specifically want it to definitely be it's well supported. So they've done a lot of work paying people to work on it and make sure that FreeBSD runs very well in Hyper-V and on Azure.
Yeah.
Because, lots of companies have a Windows-style infrastructure and they want some FreeNASs or whatever. And so they got to, Microsoft wants to make sure that they can support that.
I like that. I like that a lot. That's cool. So this next article on Medium was linked in our subreddit, and it's a thought-provoking piece, and it essentially says, if you want decent performance from your Linux kernel, you need to be running at least 3.13 or newer. And if you're running like 3.2, you might be having significant performance issues. But Alan, it sounds like maybe you have a little methodology complaints.
Well, in their benchmarks here, they don't really show how much variance there was when they ran the test multiple times. Or they don't say how many times they ran the test and then average the results over.
Not a fan of doing it on a ThinkPad laptop either, probably,
the
right?
other thing is like their host machine for the test was a Lenovo ThinkPad with 16 gigs of RAM, which is 4 cores.
And you're doing these were specific Postgres database performance.
Yeah, no, they had a 256 gig SSD and stuff, and they were running Ubuntu and VirtualBox. And the virtual machine had 4 gigs of RAM, 4 processors, 40 gigs of storage, which was just the VMDK. And then they had the regular acceleration turned on and all that. And they tried various different You tried Ubuntu 10.04, 12.04, 14.04, and then I think 14.04 with some changes or something. Oh, no. 12.04 they tried with 3 or 4 different versions of the kernel. And basically said that they found that the old 2.6 had the best performance.
Yeah, ouch. I guess not too surprising. Probably has less things going on, right? More simplified code. Sometimes older is faster.
Shouldn't be, but is.
Yeah. That's why I mean it's not too surprising.
So they had this big variance on 3.2, and I'm wondering how statistically significant the variance actually is.
I remember there being something about 3.2 too. So they say in conclusion, if you're on kernel 3.2.0 or probably any of the 3.2s, it's worth to upgrade to better performance. Right. You should upgrade to 3.13.0 or a later version due to I/O issues. I remember hearing something about I/O issues that were fixed.
What's the lifetime on the Ubuntu 12.04? It's long-term support, but how long is long-term?
14.04? I believe it's
12.04.
Oh, I thought he said he's on 14.04 in this though.
Well, he did the 2.6
I think it's
is 10.04.
I believe it's 5 years.
3.2. The 3.2 that he had the problem with is actually the old 12.04.
Oh yeah, that's why it'd be on such an old kernel too. Yeah, I think it's 5 years is the support cycle. So that's, and then
he shows all the changes and stuff he did, but he's got all the details of what he ran the config files as, but not much detail on how many times he ran the test and how he did the statistics on it.
So it looks like 12.04 LTS end of life is April 2017.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, they say the 3.2.0 kernel had a 24% degradation versus the 2.6, and that. In general, the fastest was actually the 313 without some change that he made. When the auto group enabled, it actually made it 16% slower than without it.
To me, I mean, there is some methodology quibbles, but to me,
benchmarking is hard.
It highlights,
especially if all you have is a laptop.
Yeah, it highlights to me kind of a problem with Linux distributions is I think when you ship
the same version of the kernel on it, not Ubuntu, have the same problem or not, or was it specific to a Ubuntu problem?
I'm pretty sure it was anything in. I remember there being a problem with Linux kernel 3.2, and I don't remember the details about it, but I'm pretty sure we covered it in last. And I seem to remember it was an overall performance bug with I/O. And this is where my complaint is how does this?
But that's my big quibble here is you're doing I/O testing in a virtual machine instead of on a disk.
Yeah, that's no good.
That actually even if your backing disk underneath is an SSD,
especially when that's no good at all because you're not that's no good not for testing I/O.
If all you care about is what the performance is like in a virtual machine,
okay,
then that's important.
Yeah,
right. But if your real concern is overall performance and raw performance, then in this case his point was about the kernel. Then the amount of variance you get from a virtual machine seems like that would not be helpful.
Yeah, because in a virtual machine, it's a totally sometimes the kernel's aware it's talking to
it's hard to reformat your laptop to all these different versions.
Yeah,
and especially he's using his laptop, I'm guessing, because it's the machine he has to work with. He doesn't have another machine that he can reformat and run the benchmarks on.
So if you're on 12.04, if you got something around 12.04, maybe do some tests yourself and see if you notice a difference.
Yep,
could do that.
You might be able to just upgrade your kernel and get better performance or whatever.
Okay.
Stay tuned for BSD Now next week, where we'll be talking with benchmarking expert Brendan Gregg.
Ooh, now there's somebody who knows about benchmarks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can see his slideshow and the video of it from MeetBSD over on YouTube or on the MeetBSD site. And his slides are up on SlideShare under his account. And he talks, a couple of things like how the problem with benchmarks is it takes more than twice as much effort to disprove a benchmark than it does to make the benchmark in the first place. So people don't often take the time to refute a benchmark. Where that was actually his job for a while at Joyent, was when places would write in, Joyent is this much slower than Amazon. He would have to figure out why and debunk it. And in the one case, it was the fact that their little script that was processing the results from the benchmark tool would just delete the decimal place. And so, 100.4 became 1,004. And that obviously makes a big difference. And then the other one was one place where they were dropping the letter K. And so if you looked at a graph of the performance on Joyent, it was like this, because it'd be like 900, 1.1K.
All over the place.
Right? So then it would treat that as 900 versus 1.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the script was fixed, all of a sudden, oh, yeah, join's actually this much faster.
That's funny. Little change like that, and the data looks completely different. All right, so last week we talked about, and we didn't know the name, and then we found out like right after we got off air, about an ISP, a wireless ISP, I don't know if we knew it was wireless at the time, that was stripping TLS from email, or preventing a TLS connection, really.
Well, specifically what they would do is, when you connect to a mail server, you connect over plain text, right, SMTP. In the message from the server, it lists all the features it supports, and one on each line. Right? It's like, oh, I support, hashed authentication and this and that. And one of them will say start TLS. Mm-hmm. And what that means is that when the client sends that, the client is now expecting the connection to be upgraded and start doing an SSL handshake.
But if the client never sees it...
Right. If the client doesn't see it, then it will assume the server doesn't support it.
Right. So that's where we found out that this ISP was preventing that from ever happening, so therefore the client would never try to encrypt.
Yeah. So Cisco makes a firewall that specifically strips that line out, and if the client manually sends it anyway, we'll send back an error message saying we don't support that, because they want to be able to read all the email going out to tell if it's spam, so they can block spam from being sent from inside your network to the world. Mm-hmm. Which, that's a feature. So it's not clear whether this ISP was purposely doing this or if they just had a firewall or something that was doing something like that and they didn't realize that what it was actually doing was blocking encryption on everybody's email.
And we now know it's Cricket Wireless, so if you're a Cricket Wireless subscriber...
a reseller of AT&T.
Yeah. This might be happening. Well, this probably is happening to you.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple other companies, because they got bought by somebody, and there's a bunch of other stuff. But Ars Technica has a big write-up about it.
And there was several that are outside the U.S. doing it as well.
Yes, there are lots of other places doing that. I wonder how many of them are doing it on purpose and how many of them just happen to be using a firewall that does something like that.
It's a bad feature, but yeah.
Well, it's a good feature if you're a corporation who has a problem with spam getting sent from infected computers on your network. It's a bad feature otherwise.
So over a few series of TechSNAP, we've talked about the way attackers or law enforcement agencies can take these portable cellular towers, quote unquote, and then overpower your local towers and get your phone to connect to them and then begin to monitor your activity. It's now been revealed by the Washington Post and others that U.S. Marshals have been flying over the United States in Cessnas with dirt boxes built by Boeing, and they are pinging out to everybody's phones, collecting their location, their information, and having them connect because it's a little flying mobile cell tower. They say...
basically it's a flying mobile cell tower, so it's closer than the actual tower to your phone, and your phone's like, well, that one's got a stronger signal, I'm going to use that one.
Yeah, it's called Digital Recovery Technology. That's where the DIRT acronym comes from. And they swear, guys, look, yeah, I mean, we're collecting everybody's information when we fly over them, but we totally delete it when we land. Promise. That's actually what they said.
We're only after certain people. We're wasting all this money on gas for an airplane just to get one person.
Yeah, my butt. Of course, this is another example of where you have to wonder how authorities are using this. And it's another example.
Wonder how that device works. Normally, some of the older ones, like the Stingray or whatever, they trick your phone into not encrypting the connection.
Right, they go down to 2G.
Your phone is supposed to warn you if the cell tower is trying to connect, that it's about to connect to, doesn't have encryption.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, no, don't do that. That would be bad.
Yeah. My question...
This is to prevent somebody from one of these, with a software version of this on a laptop at a coffee shop from spying on people's calls. So
my question is are these dirt boxes doing GSM and all of the frequencies and CDMA?
And did they get the encryption keys from the phone company to be able to emulate the phone company's tower?
Yeah, I have a ton of questions about this, but no details in any of these articles. Right. But we do know enough.
Details are classified.
Yeah. Okay, Alan. This next one, it's not going to lead in. It's not going to usher in Skynet, so don't worry about it. Self-repairing software is now tackling malware. What could go wrong?
So this one, I'm not too sure how good this is yet. But anyway, computer scientists claim they have developed software that can not only detect and eradicate never before seen viruses and other malware, but can automatically repair damage done by those viruses and malware.
Wow.
So I'm guessing it looks for a certain pattern. Oh, something trying to encrypt all your files? That's probably bad. And if it's been keeping a log or a snapshot or something of everything the software does, then it can undo that.
It's called A3, Advanced Adaptive Applications, and it was co-developed by a Massachusetts-based defense contractor, Raytheon. Yeah. Wow, we'll be seeing it. Also funded by DARPA. It's a 4-year project, which was completed in late September, and they say they have a working demonstration of it. Well, very neat.
So I'd say, obviously it'll work on the ones it detects. And it can detect never seen before viruses that do things that viruses that have seen before have done. But obviously it might not be very useful against types of attacks nobody's seen before.
Sometimes events happen in your life that really make things official. Like you get married and you get a marriage certificate, right? Or you have a horrible vulnerability and you get a US cert number assigned to you. Right? That's it. The Apple mask attack technique is now being posted on the US cert website. Alan, what do you think about this? It makes it legit, right? This is like the big boy, like
and stuff.
Welcome to the club. You are now on this webpage. Congratulations, you have a full-blown vulnerability that everybody's going to talk about.
So this one's more U.S. Cert sending an advisory to businesses. Hey, pay extra attention. Specifically saying it's able to mimic the original app's login interface and steal your credentials, access sensitive data that might have been left behind by the app in local storage, perform background monitoring of the device, right? If you install this app, it could be running all the time like you would expect that the original app to do, and listen to your microphone or just watch what you're doing or whatever. It could also gain root privileges on the iOS device and do whatever it wanted. And it can also be indistinguishable from the genuine app, so you can't even tell that that's what's happening. So they say the solution is iOS users can protect themselves from mask attack by don't install apps from sources other than the official app store or your own organization. Don't click install for third-party pop-ups when they pop up on a web page. And when opening an app, if iOS shows untrusted app developer, click do not trust. Although now that I realize that this is literally copy and pasted from the article last week. CERT did not do very much work on this.
No, and they even link back to just the FireEye research blog. But I think it's of note that they're taking note of it.
Well, specifically, corporate security departments in everywhere are subscribed and actually pay attention to these alerts.
Yep.
The part of the U.S. Search job is to filter out all the stuff and distill down to these short messages saying, hey, watch out for this thing happening. Like, we've seen this particular thing being installed on the credit card processing terminals, the point-of-sales terminals. And so, hey, our company has point-of-sales terminals. We should check and make sure ours don't have this virus. So, yes, it's a thing.
It is, and it's there. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the roundup, which means we're at the end of the TechSNAP program. Now, we would normally, typically, on average, be live over at jblive.tv on a Thursday at 1 p.m. Pacific, which is
4 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC.
But not next week. It's going to be Thanksgiving in the United States, so we're taking that day off, but we will be back the week following, so we invite you to join us live, hang out in our IRC, chat with us in between segments or during the show, help title it, all of those kinds of good things. If you can't be here live, but you still want to get involved in some of the TechSNAP action, why wouldn't you, right? TechSNAP.reddit.com. That's where you go. Comments, votes, stories, all of that help make this a better show, and we appreciate it. And, of course, last but not least, click that contact link, choose TechSNAP from that drop-down, and then the input box, you type it all out. Now, we got a little protest. If you don't see, not a protest, but a pro-test, if you don't see a submit button, that's because you're using Firefox and you got your zoom up too high. So you knock it off, you old man. Turn your zoom down, change your resolution, and you'll see the submit button, and then submit a bug to Mozilla to fix that S because it's been broken for like a year, and it's ridiculous. That's why you don't see that.
About?
Well, Alan, you might not know this, but a lot of times in the emails, I get this note saying like, hey, bro, your submit button doesn't show up in Firefox. I had to use Chrome. And it's not actually a problem with our website. It's a bug, and it's annoying. And it's a problem with, like, you have, like, your zoom up to, like, 110 or 125%, and then you go to the contact page. Anyways,
I turn my zoom all the way up, and I can see the submit.
I know, it doesn't happen all the time. I know. Anyways, you can go try it out.
It's not a CSS bug or something?
Well, no. Of course not. Why don't people...
It is a CSS bug, though.
Alan, I'm trying to get people to go try it. I was trying to get people to go there and try it. You're ruining my surprise. I'm trying to get them to go to the contact page. You're such a spoil sport. Anyways, go there. See if it is a CSS bug. See if I'm right over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. Let's try it out. You know what? And then if you're in Chrome, you'll see it works every time. You're like, what are they talking about? Chris got no problems. Anyways.
Well, see, you were trolling my web browser and saying Chrome was better.
I know.
Right?
I know.
That was your mistake.
Not just your web browser, just about everybody's web browser. It works well, you'll find. I find people respond well to that, Alan. It's a call to action, if you will.
Yes. That's a good one. I'm sorry I spoiled it.
That's
There's
okay.
a reason they call me Captain Buzzkill.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in this week's episode of TechSNAP. We'll see you right back here next week.